Good afternoon, Michael or Rob. And it's True Solidarity. Today we're all Michaels. We're all Michaels today. Thank goodness this guy's no Michael, so we can trust him. I know I'm Hat Rob. I'm Hat Rob today, but I'm very trustworthy. Is the Expos hat because of the Expos news? No. I was just like wearing this. I just like put this on to leave the house earlier. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, this kind of works. We can work with this today. We can bring back Hat Rob for a little guest appearance. It's the most subversive, immune to propaganda streamer, Rob Rousseau. That's right, Sebs. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I assume the Expos news, Danarchist, is that the Expos, I think they're going to split time. The Tampa Bay Rays are going to split time between Montreal and Tampa Bay, which is hilarious because it's just like the snowbirds. Like there really is a constituency for that. There's people that live half the year in Quebec and half the year in Florida. That is a thing. That is a real thing that people do. So it's Monday morning. We're already getting moon pilled. We're already getting moon pilled in the chat. What's up, everyone? How was your weekend? I hope you had a good weekend. Obviously, I know it must have been good. Obviously, I know it must have been good because shortly after this very stream, on Friday, when all the Rob Rousseau Show prayer warriors got together, we sent our thoughts and our prayers to our two precious boys, our beautiful Michaels. The TRRS prayer warriors came through. Our prayers were answered. Shortly after the stream ended, in which we very clearly established that people that donated friend coin to that stream were donating one prayer per donation. Shortly afterwards, I had to leave earlier to go free the Michaels. That's right. Shortly after the stream, the news came through that our beautiful Michaels were returned home. That's the power of positive thinking. Folks, we did that. We brought them back. That was us. And I think we should not shy away from acknowledging that. It's like in Pulp Fiction. That was a miracle. I want you to acknowledge it. What happened to us was a miracle, and I want you to fucking acknowledge it. Beautiful. In fact, let's just dive right into this, everybody. Shit. What happened was a miracle, and I want you to fucking acknowledge it. Would this be better like this? Here's the question. Oh, that's kind of good. Yeah. Okay, that's working for me. One moment, let me just situate this title here. Here we go. Oh boy. We just need to think and donate to Rob to make things happen. That's the lesson that I'm taking away. That's the lesson that I'm taking away from our experience. You're telling me you've discovered that you have the power to influence events like this, and you're just not going to take advantage of it? Seriously. Oh boy, do we have a lot to talk. We have a lot to talk about today, folks. I'm feeling very low energy. But we're gonna do this. God damn it! You can count on me. You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Cheers, TRRS Lenin.
Thank you so much, Alana Nana. And I saw your comment on Friday.
Use the computer to mark up the size of the account.
Prayer warriors, I need a new Tesla so I can self-actualize. Then you'll finally be complete as a human being, Dunstable. Once you get that Tesla, you'll finally be complete as a human being. I hope you do it. The prayer warriors are going to get you there. And Alana Nana, that's the thing. I saw your tweet the night when the news came down that the Michaels were freed. Alana Nana was like, you did this. And thank you. I appreciate that, Alana Nana. I agree. That was all us. The Michaels they sent back are actual body doubles, sent by the Chinese to both fool and deceive us. Their motivation was China, which exists only to conduct strange and inscrutable operations to frustrate the West. Honestly, I hadn't heard that Solitaire, but I like what you're putting down right now. That's something, I don't think we should rule that out. I'm just as happy as anyone that the Michaels have returned, but I don't think we should rule that out. It could be some kind of possible cyborg, CPC cyborg situation. The dedication of the brave Michaelistas. Thank you. Let's see this. Let's see this.
About 12 minutes ago, the aircraft carrying Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor left Chinese airspace and they're on their way home. They boarded at about 7:30 Ottawa time, along with Dominic Barton, Canada's ambassador to China.
We did it. Cannot believe CSIS just tweeted it out. I heard as well they stopped to refuel in Alaska. They stopped to refuel and get debriefed in Alaska before returning as well. Anyone else noticed the aggression in which the Michaels have conducted themselves since returning from China? Oh my gosh. It's like Homeland. Imagine if they'd been flipped. They're agents of President Xi. I would actually support. In that case, all the shit that we say about the two precious Michaels I would support that. I would say that completely unironically. If they had flipped to become secret Chinese agents, I would be like, seriously, our two precious Michaels, though. For real. For realsies. That would be cool. Well done, President Xi. Sometimes you gotta hand it to him. I'm sorry, I know this isn't popular to say. Sometimes you do just have to hand it to him. Sometimes he gets it done. And you just have to respect it. And there's a number of tweets we can look at about this. A win is a win. That's right. There's a number of tweets we can look at about this. And the thing that has really alarmed me, you can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this. The way that like there's a broad consensus about this across the ideological spectrum Everyone is falling in line here. Alana Nana, thank you so much for gifting us up to Danarchist. Look at that. Thank you so much, Alana Nana. I'm looking at ways of integrating hostage diplomacy into my own personal life. Sometimes it gets the job done. I'm not advocating for anything illegal. You know, I wouldn't advise anyone to do anything that's going to get them in any kind of trouble. Sometimes you can't argue with those results, though. I mean, they got their... In this case, China got back their executive, very powerful citizen that they wanted to get back into their country. They got her back with like some bullshit charges, and they just had to give up these two low-level dudes who are of no real strategic importance to them at all. So they get their like super powerful Huawei executive, and we get back our two Michaels who we're supposed to be very passionate about this. They're high-level Michaels. Listen, I don't want to take away from the fact that for too long now, Canada has been short its allotted number of Michaels. We had the wrong amount of Michaels on Thursday, and then by Friday we were back to having the correct amount of Michaels. I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to take away from that, folks. In terms of the trade, though, you gotta say China probably came out on top on that one, though. Just evaluating it from sort of a straight up standpoint, perfectly balanced as all Michaels should be. That's right. I was reading about Xi this morning, and it's hard not to understand the cult of personality thing some are worried about. He really is a Chad. It's hard to argue with that. It's like this thing of like Western leftists who have been critical of China for a long time, and for sometimes completely accurately. We've talked about all the problematic ways that they've had to like lean into this world of market capitalism in order to like build up their forces. We can criticize that all day. But people have been saying too, like President Xi, why will you not press the socialism button? Press it, President Xi, sir. And now he's like actually doing it. He's like, okay, he's pressing the socialism button now. And it's like, oh, damn, you can actually do that. It's taken us all aback, I think, because now they're actually starting to kind of do this stuff. Let's take a look at some of these like tweets about this, though. Because like we can joke around about the Michaels and talk. I've actually been really enjoying doing the Precious Michaels bit. I find it very funny. Like I've been chuckling at this a lot. I've seen this like take off. We've started doing it on this channel, then I started noticing that it really like became an actual meme. The two Precious Michaels. I enjoy it. It's fun to laugh at. But I find it also very scary. It's also very scary the way the narrative is forming about this, both in the media, in the political class. There's a really like a uniform, what feels like a major propaganda effort right now to ensure that like one narrative about this incident makes it through this sort of media spin zone and the political spin zone, and no other viewpoint is really being talked about at all. And that's alarming, I think. Like that's not, I enjoy laughing about it, honestly, but it's really like, I think a ugly sign for where this is all going. This new Cold War stuff, which now like we talk about, you know, being on the air for this show for like over a year, almost. This is one of the things that we started out talking about and we've returned to time and time again. This new Cold War stuff. That's exactly why we've taken solace in the Michael Parentis or the Vijay Prashads of the world. People that sound like they're not people that were like pulled into this propaganda war like so many people were. People that were like completely resisted that and rejected it at all fronts. And I just feel like it's intensifying. It's intensifying even more. And that's the really freaky thing, I think. You know, this new Cold War stuff, the new Red Scare stuff, we can make jokes about it, but I really still feel like we're only barely scratching the surface of how crazy this stuff is going to get. Like, as we've discussed endlessly, all this is happening. All the talk about China, everything that's been going on with regards to like ratcheting up tensions with China over the last 2 years. It's all, regardless of what people tell themselves, whether it's about human rights or whatever, it's all based on economic reasons, and that's all. That's all it is. Because they see what has happened. They see that how like they're several moves ahead on the chessboard. We all know that they're going to be the like number one economy in the world pretty soon. We all realize this. Our ruling class realizes this, and they're freaking out about it. They're losing their grip on the global economic system. They're losing their grip on the global imperialist system. They're losing control of this narrative. And that's why all this stuff is ramping up. And that's what I'm really realizing though, is that like this is only the beginning. Like they're freaking out to this extent because they know what's going to happen in a few years. Well, what do you think this is going to look like, all this shit, once they do surpass the United States as the global economy? And they do start providing an alternative to this, like, as we've discussed endlessly, this US-based protection racket, global protection racket that the US is in charge of. It's the Canada and the UK and Australia are these kind of like junior partners in this system. And Israel and all these other countries that are part of this sort of system. What happens then? This is what I want to know. What is going to happen once this moment comes? Because like we are already seeing a lot of crazy stuff just materializing in the last 2 years. Just even in the last year since we've been all talking together, since we've been all hanging out. What is this shit going to look like 5 years from now? That's what I want to know. Because right now, just like taking this as an example, this is why I think it's important to talk about this 2 Michaels incident, because it's a really example in this ongoing narrative. Look how our political class is reacting to this. Not just the conservatives, not just the mean reactionaries, bipartisan across the political spectrum. Look how the media is talking about it. Like that's why the joke exists. That's why the joke about the 2 precious Michaels exists. Because the media has played a large role in creating this narrative that these are just infantilizing them like this. Like as we've talked about before, this sending our love down the well type coverage. We talk about them like they're these 2 sweet innocent boys who are lost, who fell down a well, and we've got to like support them and send them our love and support. It's fucking alarming. Seriously. And this is only the very, very beginning of this stuff. China's playing 4D Go with us. We're being dragged on by our own anti-vaxxer hogs. As a Redditor, if there's one thing I know, it's China bad. Like, and remember, like that. Obviously, that's true. That's a very real trope about Reddit. Spooky. But I feel like this. I really was into Reddit like 10 years ago or so, and I was really drawn to Reddit because I found it was very progressive. That's where I got in, started like really looking into more like progressive media and that kind of stuff. That's where I found it all. All this China bad stuff, this is a new thing. This is a thing that started really in the last 3 or 4 years. Like this was not really happening during the Obama era. All of this has just ramped up in the last couple of years. I think the Hong Kong protests, which was really the impetus of this escalation into the China bad territory that we're at right now. It's scary. It is scary to see how many people are getting pulled into this. Even people that are like, oh yeah, I'm immune to propaganda. I'm a free-thinking individual, progressive. I'm into social democracy, socialism. And it's just, I feel like so many people are just instantly just getting pulled right into this stuff. It's while China's just going on with its business. We try to force a Cold War with them. We keep throwing wild accusations at them, and they're like, no, and they just go on their day. And then it's like this, all we hear are stories about their aggression. We looked at the video on Friday. All the stories are about the aggression from China. What do we have to do? What are we going to do about China? And it's making me feel fucking crazy. And here, this is why I think it's important what we do here. I don't know, maybe this is self-aggrandizing. It probably is. It's probably narcissistic. But like it really reminds me of the days and weeks and months following 9/11. The uniformity of like the media narrative, the political narrative, and just everyone getting on board, bipartisan, getting pulled into this narrative, and the people that are outside of this narrative being denounced as like terrorism sympathizers and all this. That's what it feels like. And it will make you feel insane. If you feel like you're the only person that feels this way, and you see all the people you know getting pulled into it, you turn on the TV and it's the same thing, and in your mind you're like, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't agree with this. But because of these like broad social and media narratives that get told to us, we start to feel weird about saying anything about it. You know what I mean? It makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. Am I wrong? Am I wrong to feel like this is bad? And as a result, even though no one has passed any specific laws about anything, or no specific rules have happened, we all start to self-censor. We all start to second guess when we start making these arguments. It's like, I don't want to cause a big thing. I don't want to be accused of this. I don't want to be accused of being an authoritarian. I don't want to be accused of being a genocide denier. I'm just going to say nothing. And that's why I do honestly think that it is important, that what we do here is important, to just talk about this stuff and to say like, is this weird to anyone else? Yes, we're all feeling this. Okay, well, perhaps there's something to this. You know, it makes me feel less crazy. Seriously. To be able to come here week in, week out and go over all this with you and just say like, is it weird to be alarmed by this? And to have a community of people that seem to feel like we're on the same page here. You know, that's it. It's so important. And as we've looked at with those clips from Vijay Prashad, as he mentions, it's not just about like being against it or having the correct ideas. If you were as alarmed about this kind of stuff as I am, you can't just like say nothing. You have to speak out. And this is the really difficult thing that I've really had to come to grips with, is that it's still relatively easy to speak out. We can still speak out. It's been definitely manipulated, this conversation, over the last couple of years to make it much more difficult. But it's going to become even more crazy. All this shit is going to go, all this tension and all this paranoia is going to get turned up even more over the course of this decade. And all the pressure to not say anything, the pressure to fall in line is going to increase, not decrease. It's going to like significantly increase. And this is just one feeling I have had like since we started doing this show, is just no matter what happens, I am personally planning to stand my ground here. I do not want a new Cold War. I see what is happening. Everyone should be able to see what is happening and say like, no, we don't want this. I'm not participating. I'm not, sorry. You know what? Sorry. I'm not participating in your new Cold War. I'm very sorry. I will not be participating. Fucking count me out. I do not want conflict with China. China is not our enemy. I do not believe that China is our enemy. I do not want more conflict with China. What I want is for all of us, the West and China, to work together to create a beautiful new generation together of peace and solidarity and cooperation. That's what I want. This path we're going down right now, that's not that path. It really isn't. We're going the wrong fucking direction here. This is the thing that scares me about this. All my friends are very anti-China, so whenever we hang out and China's brought up, I just sit there like, what now? It's again, this is when was this coming up 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago in 2015, were we sitting down and having people just bring up out of nowhere, like, what are we supposed to do about China? This just didn't exist. Maybe among certain like neocon or like national security oriented people. This is like a new thing. We should all be very alarmed how we've seen people get pulled into this. Canada doesn't need a hefty Bethune pill. Let's look at some of the tweets. This is why it's been very fun to joke around this like two Michaels things. It is funny. But honestly, the reaction to this has been super alarming to me. Don't mind the picture of Internet Hippo with his butt. Not great. Like, here's a good. We can look at all the like super reactionary reactions to this, and we can and should do this. This is Charlie Angus, who is supposed to be. We complain endlessly about the NDP. We complain endlessly about the leadership of the NDP and the lack of like backbone, their inability to move to the left and take these strong positions. And the answer to that is always like, well, there's guys like, there's plenty of people. There's like Charlie Angus. This is the left of the NDP. And Charlie, he's a guy that I've taken a number of positions that I agree with and that I think he's solid on. But this is our left in our political class. Like, Charlie Angus basically represents like one of the most leftward people in our whole parliamentary system. And he says, Canadians express our relief that the two Michaels have finally come home, but we cannot forget the fact that two innocent Canadian citizens were seized as hostages by China. There can be no return to normal with the Chinese government. Like, what the fuck? I love this projection people use to 1 billion people are being oppressed, but they aren't capable of any sort of pushback because they're brainwashed. And yeah, Red Scary said, have you considered that the 96% of Chinese people that support their national government are all brainwashed, but not in a racist way? Like, people are legitimately making this argument. And it's not even the left in terms of like the left and the elected officials that are like social democrats at the very limit of that. But like, it's on the left elsewhere. I left a whole like DM I was in on Twitter, like basically an ML DM that I was in with a number of people that I kind of liked at first. But every fucking time that I would open this DM, it was just nonstop complaining about Dengism and China being fascist. And just these constant complaints. And it was amazing because like these were people that they're super like anti-Vosh and the debate bros and the soak dems and all that stuff. They hate all that stuff. But these people, as soon as China would come up, would make arguments 100% identical to like what Vosh would say. It's really fucking weird. And I have nothing to do with that. These are like basically Maoists that view modern China as being revisionist and now fascist. They just say that it's just new. Xi is like a fascist. They say it's the most like successful fascist government. It's indistinguishable from the right, what the right says. The funny thing about the insane fear-mongering about China is being conducted by liberal democratic governments is that it makes it very difficult politically for the socialist communist left to deliver sensible good faith critiques of China for worry of playing into the Red Scare. That's true. That's really true. It's not that there isn't stuff to criticize, and we've brought up that stuff constantly. There's plenty we can criticize, but like, it's hard not to feel like you're contributing to that when you see the direction things are going. And that even trying to make these comradely good faith critiques just feel like you're contributing to this really ugly thing. The Michaels were two straight white cis guys that make more than $12K US dollars a year. My give a fuckometer isn't that refined. It's a cheap model, so I can't even register that level of who cares, since that's not my demographic. No, it's not, Lodane. And also, the reality is that no one wants to admit, and I just feel fucking crazy continually pointing this out. Once again, the socialism I've invented in my head is real, but this country's actually building socialism are fake. That's the argument, yeah. They've done, I saw a comment, I was like, they've done everything wrong that a socialist state should do. And it's like, yes, you, the Twitter guy, who's read like 5 books and has a few hundred Twitter followers, are certainly much more capable of making these decisions. If only you had been put in charge, then there would be pure socialism in the world. Wonderful. But that's the thing, Lodane. It's like, it's not even that these guys are well-to-do or that you don't give a fuck about that, but these were obviously not just like innocent randos, which is the thing that everyone is avoiding talking about. These two they're not just like our beautiful boys, our beautiful, sweet, innocent Michaels that were just kidnapped. They were just taken hostage for no reason. No one believes this is true. I mean, some people seem to, but... And Penny, yes. It's like they're literally fucking telling you. They're telling you. Right out in the open. And we're still supposed to believe that these are just fucking guys that were just kidnapped for no reason. Businessmen would never be involved with intelligence agencies. No, I've never heard of the United Fruit Company or Zapata Oil. Why do you ask? There's always a fucking degree of separation. There's always plausible deniability. None of these guys are going to be like, oh yes, here's my fucking CSIS card. Here's my I'm an intelligence agency card. Of course they have fucking cover stories. There's always plausible deniability. There's always a cover story. And this is the thing that I tweeted last night that has been bothering me so much about this, which we've talked about endlessly on the show. I feel like I'm just screaming into the fucking void when we're talking about this. Why did this incident happen in the first place? Let's go through this again. We've gone through this endlessly. But let's go through this again. Why did this incident happen in the first place? Why did we arrest Meng Wanzhou in the first place, which started this whole incident? It was because Canada was, as I tweeted here, it was because Canada was told to enforce the United States' illegal sanctions regime on Iran. The sanctions regime, which Huawei was said to have violated, that launched this whole incident, those sanctions are illegal. Iran negotiated in good faith with the United States and the international partners on the Iran deal. And dropping sanctions was part of all that. When Donald Trump was elected, they immediately arbitrarily threw all those negotiations in the garbage and just completely arbitrarily sanctioned Iran again, which was 100% bipartisan, by the way, because those sanctions on Iran, which was fucking violated beloved President Obama's top foreign policy achievement of his whole presidency. These sanctions were included in Russian sanctions. So no one could vote against it because of the evil Russians were getting sanctioned. And if you were against these sanctions, then you were part of Putin's scheme. So this was like completely bipartisan, except for Bernie Sanders and maybe a few other people that didn't vote for these sanctions. These sanctions against Iran are completely arbitrary, completely illegal. And Canada's not even responsible. We don't sanction Iran. Canada's not even sanctioning Iran. Yet we were told by the United States State Department to lock up Meng Wanzhou for violating these sanctions. We did exactly as we were told, regardless of whether it was legal or illegal. We played our role as like the junior partners in this fucking illegal organized criminal syndicate that we're part of, this organized crime protection racket that we're part of. We played our role in that. And then instead of just taking it on the chin, China says like, okay, well, we're going to scoop up these two dipshits that we've had our eye on. Which, I'm sorry, is a reasonable reaction to our act of aggression. We're going to scoop up your two precious Michaels. We've got your boys now. So now what are we going to do? So then that leads to this whole ongoing negotiation that's gone on for years, where eventually she gets charged with these bullshit charges and let go, and then we get our guys back. This was entirely an incident that we specifically and deliberately created. And the narrative that is being spun about this, which is completely bipartisan, relentless in our media, the narrative that is being spun about this is that evil, devious China just arbitrarily woke up one day and decided to kidnap our two beautiful boys for just no reason. And that's the narrative that's being told in the media. And people are just swallowing it. People are just instantly buying it. And I'm sitting here watching all this happen just like, what the fuck is going on? Seriously. Seriously. Like, I feel like I'm getting like emotional here. But it's ridiculous. It's so fucking weird to see this happen and feel like you're the only person that recognizes this. And I know I'm not the only person, obviously. But that's how you're made to feel when you see these relentless media campaigns. No one has mentioned this. That we started this incident. No one has mentioned this. We have the fucking Globe and Mail our paper of record, encouraging people to basically send fucking fan mail and send a message of hope to the two Michaels, with zero mention of the whole fucking reason that this happened in the first place. More like the joke and fail. Oh my gosh. Neglect. The media is truly going for a 1950s Red Scare style. They will come and take your Michaels too, and it's working. It is absolutely working. Like fucking gangbusters. And it's terrifying, honestly. Because this is only going to escalate. It was never going to happen, but imagine if the US, Canada had worked with China to make the world a better place. That wealth, the power, the potential. That's been the story of the last century, Sean Meat. There was an opportunity. There was an opportunity for global cooperation to create a beautiful future for everybody. All the formerly colonized countries. And at each turn, we, the like Western former colonialist countries, have like slapped the hand of friendship away, time and time again. We chose, instead of working with the Soviet Union, we chose to destroy the Soviet Union by any means necessary. And we spent fucking like 80 years doing that instead of like cooperating with them and trying to build a better world. And now the opportunity is here again, and the same fucking thing is happening. The best is my dad is a big China bad guy. Said, oh, we released Meng Wanzhou, so when will China release the Michaels? Very sarcastically, literally less than an hour later, they did. And I want to look at this too, like some of the reactions to just even this. There's people that agree and support this, which I appreciate. Here's one thing I've seen a couple times now about the party line. When I talk about this. When I talk about the reasons for why this happened, and I have these fucking dipshits coming on being like, oh, just towing the party line. Does that mean the party line? So it's the party line. It's the quote unquote party line to just like accurately describe things that happened. That's how they just dismiss that now. Oh, he's just towing the party line. Because I said, here's the reason for why this happened in the first place, which is just total inarguable fact. Here's another one. Toe that party line. That's the new thing. Get ready to hear more of this. Get ready to hear more of this the more you start to make these arguments. It's literally the exact same story from the previous Cold War. Well, I shouldn't say the exact same, because other things people have pointed out is like, oh, people are talking about this new Cold War, ignoring the fact about all these different economic circumstances, the way that we rely on China for our economy and stuff like this. And they'll never really like clash meaningfully because of these economic partnerships. And yeah, that's why it's the new Cold War instead of the old one. It's different, but we can't deny like what is happening here. We can't deny the way things have escalated over the last couple of years. Propositional James. So I don't know. Like this is all very alarming to me. Seriously. We can't just talk about basic facts. We can't talk about the basic facts of what is happening here. Thomas Junot, Associate Prof from Ottawa U, tweets on the Middle East Security and Intelligence. Former Department of Defense Analyst. Former Department of Defense Analyst. The next step is for Canada to work with allies, yes, AUKUS, to get much tougher on the containment of China. China takes Canadian citizens as hostages, spies, steals IP, intimidates its diaspora here, etc. Maybe it would have been nice to get along, but that ship has sailed, according to Thomas. And I feel like this is the predominant understanding, like across party lines. Again, we had Jagmeet Singh. in the week before the goddamn election, making the case that Canada needs to be part of AUKUS. That's not just some nobody. Trudeau lambasted over exclusion from US-led military alliance as election nears. Look at this. Bipartisan. Bipartisan. Here's a quote from Erin O'Toole. This is another example that Mr. Trudeau is not taken seriously by our friends and allies around the world. Canada is becoming more irrelevant under Mr. Trudeau. O'Toole said he would seek to join the new Indo-Pacific Security Arrangement if the Conservatives are elected. Money quote. The new Democratic leader, Jagmeet Singh, also criticized Canada's absence from the pact, suggesting Trudeau has become too distracted by the election campaign to fully engage with allies. If Canada had become a member of AUKUS, he said, it could have put pressure on China to free... God damn it. Sorry. It could have put pressure on China to free the two jailed Canadians, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. The pact seems like a potential avenue to add more pressure on China. Canada was absent. Another reason why this election should not have been called, said Singh. Like, what the fuck? One of the first questions during the English debate was how to tackle China. Yeah, and it led to this whole section of fucking grandstanding. We had Erin O'Toole grandstanding about Canada's role as like a global human rights leader. Later on, by the way, in the debate where we had a similar conversation about the mass child graves that are routinely discovered in this country. We're the shining beacon of human rights. And this is the leader of the NDP. There are socialists advocating for this bullshit. That's what I was talking about. It's not listen, it's not just neocons. It's not just liberals. It's not just social democrats. There's like socialists. People who describe themselves as like Marxist-Leninist. This is like across the ideological spectrum. So this is where our political reality is. This is where our political reality is in this country. We've got the leader of the NDP in the weeks before the election making the argument that we need to like chain ourselves even further to the fucking genocidal dying US empire and ratchet up tensions with the new global superpower. And they literally make the case that we need to have we do need to have a new Cold War. They're openly supporting this. Jagmeet Singh, Charlie Angus, literally the only NDP MP who did not vote to accuse China of genocide was one person, Nikki Ashton. Like, this is really not good. Like, we're really headed somewhere very dangerous. At least some of these guys are getting ratioed. Ex-diplomat on CBC The National said he's gobsmacked at how the Michaels were released immediately after Meng left Canada, which is an admission that the Michaels' detention was in retaliation. Yeah, no shit. Of course it was in retaliation. When has that been in dispute? That has never been in dispute. That has never once been. Yes, it was in retaliation. Once again, I'll continue pointing this out, to our original act of aggression. We acted and they retaliated. Yes, yes. And Jagmeet was crying that Trudeau was absent during the vote. That's absolutely right. Second diplomat on CBC The National says Canada stood up to a superpower and stood by the rule of law. Whose law, though? Jay Watts has been relentless about this. That's why it does feel good to at least like have some people that I feel like are have the right line on this. Yeah, and thank you, Silver. Sorry, Silver's been posting some great stuff in the chat. I've been ranting and raving, and I haven't been able to read it out. But it is true that it is all about protecting the spoils of imperialism. Your internet, your avocado, your non-seasonable foods. Yeah, you got to protect them spoils, and that's what I keep saying. That's what I'll keep saying. That's all this was ever about. And as much as people want to try and have these arguments about human rights and all this other anything else other than the economic reasons for why this is happening, we can't ever lose sight of this, though. This is happening for economic reasons because our ruling class is freaking the fuck out that they've been beat at their own game. They're losing their grip on the narrative. They're losing their grip on power.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
And that's why it's happening. Thank you very much, G. Cluppy. Gifting us up to Spooky. That's why it's happening. And as I said, no one will ever... Look at this. Look at a beautiful image. Look at this beautiful image. They seem fine to me. I don't know. No one will ever say that they're ratcheting up tensions with China because they're for these economic reasons.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
No one will ever admit to this. It's always going to be couched in this language of human rights. You know, the liberals talk about human rights. The leftists talk about like revisionism and this shit. That's not what any of this is about, though. When you have liberals and capitalists in Africa wanting to do business with China rather than the West, you know they're losing economically and diplomatically, which is why military is the last resort. As always, imperialists resort to violence. People refuse to assimilate to their systems. And like that's the argument that I see people on the left making. Well, it's like, well, China, I'm not, you know, obviously I don't support the CIA. I don't support imperialism. I don't support the United States. But China's just doing colonialism. China's imperialist too. China's capitalist too. China's colonialist too. So that's why I don't support them either. And first of all, it's like we have to, like, you can't not have a side. If you live in the West, especially America, but anywhere in the West, Canada, the UK, if you live in the West, you cannot say neither Washington nor Beijing. Just like during the first Cold War, you couldn't say neither Washington nor Moscow. When you say neither Washington nor Beijing. What you mean is Washington. That's what that means. So these people twist themselves into pretzels to avoid doing what they're doing, which is like defending the imperialist powers and defending their own position in this global imperialist system. And they bend themselves into all kinds of ideological pretzels to justify this. And like you're pointing out, Silver, colonialism is violence. It's violence and exploitation. And I'm sorry, we can talk about it. You can say like, oh, it's still colonialism, it's still market capitalism, whatever the fuck people say. If you look at the way China is like developing with these like nations in Africa and the way that they're treating the developing world, the violence and exploitation just is not there. It's not there. Or nowhere near the same extent. What China is doing isn't even a fraction of what other countries are doing in terms of extraction worldwide. For fuck's sake, look at how huge Canadian mining is in Africa still. It's like fucking 75% of the mining interests in Africa are Canadian. And you have Canadian people sitting around arguing about China doing colonialism. That's how fucking weird and backwards this argument has gotten. My favorite is people who act like it's a scheme because it improves China's reputation with those nations and worldwide. Okay, or you just act against all acts of kindness then. There's literally nothing they could do. Like they could just be giving billions of dollars to these global south countries with zero, expecting nothing in return, with zero conditions. And people would say the same thing. Well, they just want to be perceived as this way. This is all part of like this. And it's like, well, what are they supposed to do? When you unpack that, you realize there's literally nothing. There's literally nothing that they could do. Oh man, did Sarah... That's pretty cool. Sorry, off topic, but Sarah Sherman, aka Sarah Squirm, getting added to SNL. That's pretty crazy. And James Austin Johnson. Oh my gosh. Who did the incredible Donald Trump impersonation? I mean, when I spoke to Donald Trump on the phone, it was actually Trump, but James Austin Johnson does a tremendous impression. That's really cool. Sorry to get off the... Get off the subject there. University of Ottawa professor Roland Paris, a former foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, also said the re-elected Liberal government should move quickly to develop a long-term strategy for dealing with China. Let's hear from none other than Gerald Butts. Let's hear from none other than Gerald Butts about this. The point is, Justin Trudeau's best friend, by the way. The point is, nobody has figured out what we're going to do about China. Yelling at each other about it is not going to help. Hashtag Michaels. What are we going to do about China? Why do we have to do anything about China? No one's answering that question. Once you've been labeled as violent or as authoritarian or as evil, you will never be viewed as good. Any act you will do will be seen as evil. That's the nature of the propaganda machine. Malcolm X talks about that a lot. China's been labeled as evil, Africans have been labeled savage, etc. Therefore, any narrative that appears in the media will not paint them as good actors. It will only ever paint them as bad. And that's one thing we've also talked about recently on this channel, Silvers, where it's just like we can go through history time and time again and see these different socialist movements that were threatened from without and within. And you had incidents like with Sukarno in Indonesia, with Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso, with Allende, who were all murdered while trying to institute socialism in their societies, trying to lead like decolonial movements, were all murdered. And if they had resorted to violence themselves,
you're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
The Michaels are obviously spies, and the only mistake the Chinese government made was releasing them when Meng was released.
Thank you, Sam. 12 months of tier 1 from Sam. How wonderful. The full year. Oh my goodness. That's crazy. Thank you, Sam. But talking about these leaders that were assassinated, or I don't know if Sukarno was murdered, but if he did get deposed. He was deposed and was like completely handcuffed while this like systemic campaign of violence and repression was carried out in Indonesia, which killed over 1 million people. But if any of these three, using these guys as an example, if any of them had actually like defended themselves, if they had like carried out purges within their parties, carried out, developed secret police, if they had done anything to avoid this, what the ultimate outcome was of them being murdered or deposed, they would be viewed again as like tankies. It would be tanky to defend like Sukarno or to defend Allende because they're violent, authoritarian, violent, leftist, repressive dictators. We've seen time and time again what happens when you don't defend yourself, when you don't defend these like revolutionary movements. We see what happens time and time again. And when people do anything to avoid that outcome, whether it's in the Soviet Union, whether it's Fidel, they then get talked about as if they're these violent, sociopathic dictators. There's no way out. You can't play nice. You can't do anything to defend yourself. There's nothing you can do. If you're one of these countries that's being targeted by the imperialist machine, there's nothing you can do. Well, there is stuff you can do, but in the eyes of our elites, our media class, our political class, there's no way. It's a no-win situation. Yeah, there's something they can do, but they just can't worry about PR. And that's frankly, I think, what we've seen in a lot of in the two movements that have come close to like being sort of a broad socialist movement in the West over the last couple of years, the Jeremy Corbyn campaign and the Bernie Sanders campaign. And both of those guys did worry too much about PR. Neither of those guys did what had to be done to really like seize that brass ring. That brass ring was right there. Both of them had to just like play hardball to grab it. And neither of them were willing to do it. At least that's one of the main lessons that I took away from all that. They both responded really badly to bad faith criticism and very deliberate smear campaigns. And rather than calling them out for being what they were, both of them kind of tried to bend over backwards to appease everybody, which was never going to happen. It's almost like a state to defend the proletariat is necessary. No, Sebs, the way to do it is to like show that you have the true leftist credentials by abolishing your state and just letting the United States come and just wash over and just destroy everything that you tried to build. That's the way you have to do it in order to not be considered. We wouldn't want to be considered tanky by some like dipshit like leftist streamers in Canada and the United States. Jeremy should have been the authoritarian they tried to paint him as. He should have got rid of as many neolibs from the party as he could have, but instead he handled them with kitty gloves or even put some in his shadow cabinet. And you see literally the opposite now is playing out in the Labour Party. They're literally doing the like Stalinist purges that they accused Corbyn of doing, which he never did. They're literally doing that now and purging everyone on the left and making sure that no one on the left is ever going to have a say ever again in like having a left-wing socialist become the leader of the party. Oof. You know, I was feeling very low energy when I started this stream, but the energy has picked up. Business has picked up, as Jim Ross says. Wrestling commentator Jim Ross. Here's the Toronto Star. Our left-wing paper, not just our paper of record. China seems to have gotten what it wanted and may now be able to intimidate its way out of future extradition efforts. But experts told the Star this could still come with consequences for the country. And I feel like this is what most people believe about this story. The Chinese regime may wish to spin this story as a win, but the entire rest of the world does not see it that way. The entire rest of the world does not trust the Chinese regime to be truthful or trustworthy. The bully tactics of the Chinese regime cannot be tolerated, period. This is what I think like most people believe about this. What's up, Padrino? China has never stopped bullying its neighboring countries in its 5,000 years of history. The fact that China detained the two Michaels in retaliation of Canada's detaining of Meng is a perfect example that China never stops bullying others. Two Michaels. It's your boy. I would really appreciate if someone could gift a sub to Silver. Silver is spitting truth bombs in the chat, and I think Silver has more than earned a sub. Everyone I tried. Everyone is a boomer that doesn't understand how to target the gift the subs. It's okay, Outrun. Oh, he has gifted subs turned off. Okay, well. Alright, well thank you, Outrun and Red Scary, for trying. Silver, I tried. I tried to reward you for your truth spitting. What's up, Surfer McGritty?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Red Scary, thank you so much. And here's Butts again. This is just fucking absurd. The world found out exactly what kind of people are governing China the minute the two Michaels were arrested. If there were any doubts left, the timing of their release should put them to rest. Like, I love this narrative that's forming of like, oh, it looks like this was just a retaliation. Yes, it was a fucking retaliation. When was that ever in question? Of course it was. That was never in question. As for Canada, I, for one, am happy to live in a country that upholds the rule of law, even under immense pressure from the most powerful countries on earth. Hashtag Michaels. Jesus Christ. The good old rules-based international order. Once again, folks, I'm sorry to keep saying this. The sanctions regime on Iran, which started this, not legal. Literally quite contrary to the rules-based international order that these guys fucking jerk off over all the time. Iran played by the rules. They played by the rules laid out by our leaders, our international establishment. Iran played by those rules. They followed every fucking step that the rules-based international order is demanding to get those sanctions lifted. Those sanctions were put back 100% arbitrarily. Just literally just signing a deal, negotiating a deal for years, carefully negotiating a very specific deal, abiding by it, and then having this cowboy motherfucker, Yankee, come and just like rip up the contract. That's essentially what it is. That's what the United States has been doing throughout its entire history. With indigenous people and with like their foreign partners. Yeah, you made a deal, and now guess what? The deal doesn't work for us anymore, so we're just ripping it up and pissing on it. That's the rules-based international order that these guys like to talk about. How has the rule of law helped Indigenous in Canada with regards to the suffering caused by boarding schools? Well, Silver, we lowered the flags to half-mast, though. So let's stop talking about that. That's ancient history, even though the last residential school closed in 1995. It's ancient history. Oh, cool. I've got Patreon alerts now. Thank you so much, Kyle, for subscribing on Patreon. But yes, let's just stop talking about that. Let's just stop talking about our genocidal history. We lowered the flags to half-mast, and that's the end of it. But did Congress kneel for a photo of Optel to mourn the victims? They might as well have. They might as well have put on Indian headdress and done like a war dance in memory of the children that were killed. They might as well have done. That's the level of like insulting that it should be. That's how fucking out of touch and insulting that it already is. They might as well have just gone that next step and just made it really racist. Even really, in case we weren't clear about the level of fucking insulting, dehumanizing racism at play. Let's just take it up a notch so everyone understands this. Survivors are still raising money to find their lost babies because the government just said we have to do better and moved on. Fucking rule of law. If there was a rule of law, Gerald Butts would be in a re-education camp. in Minecraft. Trudeau says it's inspiring that the two Michaels are on their way home. It's not inspiring at all. Who's inspired by that? It's a tremendously sad story. 2 men, 2 years. It's awful. It's a tragedy. Just don't be a spy, David. I've gone over this many times. I have one simple trick to not be thrown in a foreign prison. I just don't go over to foreign countries and do espionage. That's the main thing that I do in order to not have that tragic fate befall me. It's excellent news. This is everyone. Across the board. It's excellent news that the two Michaels are coming home. But it's also a 100% acknowledgement on the part of China that they do indeed target individuals from the West for hostage diplomacy. I love this is the new line. This is the real party line. Oh, they're engaging in hostage diplomacy. What the fuck were we doing? That's what we were doing. We're doing the hostage diplomacy. How do people not understand this? Seriously. I genuinely want to know, how do people not fucking understand this basic concept? We were doing the hostage diplomacy. The only thing that they did was retaliate. And they retaliated and we say, what? Because that's our colonialist mindset, right? We're allowed to do anything. We make the rule of law. We make the rules-based international order. We make the rules. We don't have to follow them. And then when someone else actually responds to doing something, which as you can see is China's feeling more confident in its role as like a global power, when they dare to fucking react to something that we did, an act of aggression that we did, when they dare to respond, we say, what? What? And these people just can't understand it. They can't even fucking internalize it. They can't understand anything that what's just happened. It just scrambles their brains. We're supposed to be the ones that do that. They can't do it back to us. Buh? That's what they say. Imagine thinking that violating sanctions gives you the right to randomly kidnap and imprison someone without trial at the behest of your violent reactionary ally. I just can't describe how pervasive this is, though. Again, I'm seeing people pushing back on this, which I appreciate. I'm happy to see it. But our entire media and political class is completely united on this. Bill Browder, the CEO of Hermitage Capital, author of Red Notice. That sounds fucking foreboding. Two Michaels land safely in Canada after nearly 3 years of detention in China. Now it's time to Magnitsky sanction the shit out of people who took them hostage. This type of state-sponsored kidnapping can't go without consequences. What did we do? State-sponsored kidnapping. That's literally exactly, word for word, what we did to start the situation. Like, I swear, just watching all this over the weekend, watch this narrative take shape over the weekend, made me feel like I was fucking losing my mind. Red Notice does for investing in Russia and the former Soviet Union what Liar's Poker did for our understanding of Salomon Brothers, Wall Street, and the mortgage-backed securities business of the 80s. Browder's business saga meshes well with the story of corruption and murder in Vladimir Putin's Russia, making Red Notice an early candidate for any list of this year's best books. Anyone that's intricately involved in like investing in the former Soviet Union which these people played a large role in like completely destroying the society and ruining people's lives, are absolute fucking scum. Scum of the earth. So, Rob, your position is that Huawei did nothing wrong. That's correct. Yes. That is my position. They violated sanctions on Iran, which were illegal and should not have been there in the first place. And it's whether you think that's true or not. Whether you think that's true or not, it is not our place. It's not Canada's place to enforce these sanctions that the US put in place. Not Canada. How is that Canada's responsibility? And then we have these right-wing reactionary guys. Canada's a prisoner exchange. We need to pull the drawbridge up right after. My column arguing that once the two Michaels step foot on home soil, we need to immediately ban Huawei and further decouple from China. Fucking IP. Ooh, they violated IP laws. Ooh. Oh my goodness. Not our precious IP laws. Suddenly very concerned and authoritarian about people who break IP laws, not as long as they're Chinese nationals and not Canadian, so long as they're Chinese nationals and not Canadian citizens. Or like tech companies spying on us. I'm really concerned about that happening when it's one specific tech company participating in that. Now let me log on to Twitter and Facebook and Instagram to talk about these things. Man. I mean, I guess I can transition into another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, which is related to this. Huawei is a security threat. Trust me, bro. Yeah. Okay. Sure. I want Huawei spying on me. I would much rather Huawei was spying on me and taking note, hopefully, of my correct opinions than these like NSA linked fucking US tech companies. I don't want them spying on me. Give me that Huawei spyware. I want them to know about all my good opinions. This is related to all this. This is like the extreme end of the new Red Scare, which we're kind of getting into, which the whole Two Michaels storyline and all this China stuff is really about. You know, it's a new Cold War and it's a new Red Scare. Social credit slavery. Man, Affinity. I feel like you're really like, it seems to me, I don't know you, but it seems to me that you're in denial about a lot of stuff that happens in our own society. It kind of sounds like a little bit of projection to me. Like maybe we should work about fixing social credit slavery in our own society before we start getting into that. This is all related though. And it's very easy to laugh at it. Like I made a tweet about this, which I'm happy resonated with people. But it's very easy to laugh at this kind of psychotic Marjorie Taylor Greene Red Scare stuff. But this is related. This is all related to this moment that we're in, this historical moment that we're in when it comes to these international relationships.
This is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real. The Green New Deal, surprise, serves China and China only. You can go ahead and put number 1 up. So today, talking about the Green New Deal and the all-out war on the men and women, this is a simple meme that you or
like it's obviously ridiculous. It's ridiculous to see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene looking at memes in Congress. I don't think the US is that far away though from people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or people that believe this exact stuff gaining real power. Like this is not going to be so funny when all of a sudden Marjorie Taylor Greene's party is back in charge of the United States government, which we all realize is something that's going to happen soon. I feel like. And it's going to stop being so funny then, I think. Once the hearings start and once they start really like taking this shit seriously and not just accusing others of supporting China and supporting communism, but literally like coming after people. This shit is coming. They're already in place in state legislatures. Absolutely. Like, I don't think any of us really realize the extent to which America is really on the verge of really fully embracing exactly this. You know, exactly what we're looking at right now. Like I was saying earlier in the stream, as we progress further into this decade, as these economic realities become more apparent, as the Western former colonialist countries start getting lapped by China, and China does become the number 1 global economy, all this shit is going to become way more serious. All of this stuff is going to become way, way more serious. Like we're only seeing the very beginnings of this. We're only in the very early stages of this. This is going to intensify a lot. And as we're going to see, the more that we progress into this decade and the more the fucking inequality continues to grow, the more that like people's ability to like maintain a decent life slips away from them. The sort of promises of the previous generations, the more these continue to slip away, the more the climate begins to break down. We're going to see young people embracing socialism a lot more as a response to that. Because as we know, it is the response. It is the correct response. And we will see for more people start to embrace that as a response, despite the decades of anti-communist propaganda that we've all been exposed to. And the more that happens, the more this Red Scare backlash is going to be, the greater it's going to be. And I just don't know how you can't see that. And I don't know how you can be on the left and still play a role in ensuring that this future takes place. Like, I'm sure when this anti-communism shit really gets out of hand, that people like Charlie Angus are going to be spared because they took the right line on this. Or all these social democrats. You think they're just going to stop? Do you think they're just going to stop at the people that are like actually advocating for socialism? They're going to eventually crack down on everyone that holds anything that they consider to be like this subversive view, which is going to be framed in this as part of this anti-China civilizational conflict. And they're going to use all the power at their disposal that's been given over the last 20 years to the intelligence community and all this stuff to stamp that out ruthlessly. You know, it's really terrifying. And that's why I think it's worth talking about this stuff now and getting these positions out there now. Because it benefits no one when you just look at this stuff happening and say, oh, I'm against this. You say it to yourself, but you don't really do anything to meaningfully push back on it. It only helps them, the people that are creating these narratives. Can I take a short break, folks? I've been really like ranting and raving for like over an hour now. For like an hour and a half, I've just been ranting and raving. It's kind of fun because usually when I do these streams, my partner is working upstairs in like the office she has upstairs. So I've got to kind of like keep a reasonable tone. But today she had to go into her office for the first time in a while. So sometimes when I'm just completely by myself here, I enjoy it. Like, it feels nice to kind of yell a little bit. And there's plenty of stuff to yell about, right? So it feels good. You've earned a rain. I really need my rain. My daily rain allotment. Which I honestly think is like damaging my health. Honestly, on Saturday, I didn't really have any coffee in the morning. I went on like a trip with my son. I brought my son to the Science Museum in Montreal because my partner was out of town. So I was like, okay, we'll go on a little adventure. We'll go on the bus and the train and the metro, go to the Science Museum. And I wasn't able to get like an energy drink on the way. I just didn't find a place on the way there to get one. And I didn't take one of my dozens of free ones that I have still. And by the end of the day, I had this splitting headache. I had just this brutal headache because I didn't get my normal, like, massive dose of caffeine. I felt so physically terrible because I hadn't gotten my daily massive hit of caffeine in order to function. You mean your performance fuel? That's right. And that's what happens when you don't get it, folks. When you don't get your performance fuel. So listen, let me just go take a little break. I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'll come back and we'll talk about some other stuff, all right? Really, what we should all take away, though, is that we love the Michaels. I think if anyone's watching, that's pretty much the main takeaway. We love the Michaels. We miss them. The TRRS prayer warriors brought them back. We did that together as a community, and we should be proud of that. We brought our beautiful boys back home. We brought our beautiful boys back home, and we should all be proud of this.